I had always been a curious soul, drawn to the shadows of the internet where whispers of the extraordinary thrived. The dark web was a realm I had only heard about in hushed tones, a digital underworld where anonymity reigned and secrets festered. My friends warned me against it, claiming it was a place for criminals and lost souls. But curiosity has a way of overriding caution, and one fateful night, I found myself diving headfirst into that abyss. It began with an innocuous search. I was researching urban legends for a podcast episode when I stumbled upon a forum that piqued my interest: Moonlit Conspiracies. The title alone sent shivers down my spine, but it was the tagline that hooked me. The moon watches us. Are you ready to listen? Intrigued, I clicked on the link. The forum was a labyrinth of threads filled with bizarre theories about the moon. Some users claimed it was an ancient alien spacecraft, while others believed it was a giant eye observing humanity from afar. As I scrolled through posts laden with cryptic messages and unsettling images of the moon distorted in various artistic styles, I felt an odd mixture of fear and fascination. One thread caught my attention more than others. It was titled "The Sentient Moon: A Call to Awaken." The original poster, who went by the username Lunarseer, wrote passionately about how the moon was not just a celestial body, but a conscious entity that influenced our thoughts and emotions. They argued that its phases affected human behavior, and that we were all unknowingly tethered to its will. I couldn't help but chuckle at the absurdity of it all. Yet, there was something about Lunarseer's words that resonated with me. The idea that we might be mere puppets in a cosmic game played by an unseen force was both terrifying and exhilarating. I found myself reading deeper into their posts, which were interspersed with personal anecdotes about strange occurrences during full moons, dreams that felt too real, inexplicable feelings of dread or euphoria, and even eerie coincidences tied to lunar cycles. As I read on, I noticed a growing community around Lunarseer's ideas. People shared their own experiences with the moon, recounting times when they felt an unshakable connection to it. Some claimed they could hear whispers in the night sky or see faces in its craters. Others spoke of rituals performed under its glow, believing they could tap into its power. Feeling emboldened by my anonymity, I decided to create an account and join the conversation. My first post was simple: "Do you really believe the moon is sentient?" Almost immediately, replies flooded in, ranging from enthusiastic affirmations to skeptical dismissals. But one response stood out: a message from Nightwatcher, who invited me to join a private chat room where serious discussions took place. My heart raced at the thought of entering this secretive space. What would these people be like? Were they truly believers in this bizarre theory, or simply looking for companionship in their eccentricity? With a mix of excitement and trepidation, I accepted Nightwatcher's invitation. That evening, as I sat alone in my dimly lit room, I clicked on the link to the chat room. The interface was stark and minimalist, with usernames glowing against a black background like stars in an infinite void. A flurry of messages scrolled past as members greeted me warmly: "Welcome, glad you're here." But there was an underlying tension in their words that made me uneasy. As I introduced myself, I noticed several users discussing recent lunar events, specifically an upcoming supermoon that they believed would amplify the moon's influence on Earth. They spoke in hushed tones about rituals planned for that night, ceremonies designed to awaken the moon's consciousness and commune with it directly. I felt a chill run down my spine as they described their experiences during previous supermoons: visions of otherworldly landscapes, encounters with shadowy figures under its light, and even moments of profound insight that changed their lives forever. Their fervor was palpable; it felt almost religious. As they shared their plans for the upcoming event, I hesitated. Was this all just harmless fun, or had I stumbled into something far more sinister? My instincts screamed at me to log off and forget this madness. But another part of me, the part that craved adventure, urged me to stay. In that moment of indecision, Nightwatcher sent me a private message: "Are you ready to see what lies beyond? The moon has secrets waiting for those who dare to seek them." With my heart pounding in my chest, I realized I stood at a crossroads. One path led back to safety and normalcy, the other promised enlightenment, or perhaps madness underneath the watchful gaze of our celestial neighbor. This segment sets up your story by introducing key themes and characters while establishing an atmosphere of intrigue and suspense. Let me know if you'd like any adjustments, or if you're ready for the next segment. The days leading up to the supermoon felt like a fever dream. I found myself obsessively checking the chat room, eagerly awaiting new messages from my newfound companions. The discussions grew more intense as the event approached, with members sharing their personal stories and theories about the moon's consciousness. Each night, I would sit in front of my computer, captivated by their fervor, yet increasingly uneasy about what I had gotten myself into. Night Watcher became my primary contact in the group. They were enigmatic, often speaking in riddles that hinted at deeper truths. The moon is a mirror, they said one night during a particularly lively chat. It reflects our fears, our desires, our very souls. To understand it is to understand ourselves. I found myself drawn to their words, even as they sent shivers down my spine. As I engaged more with the group, I learned about various rituals they planned for the supermoon. Some involved meditative practices under its light, while others were more elaborate ceremonies that included chanting, offerings of personal items, and even blood sacrifices. My heart raced at the thought of participating in something so bizarre and potentially dangerous. One evening, as I scrolled through the chat room, I noticed a new thread titled "The Moon's Eye, a Portal to Truth." Intrigued, I clicked on it and was greeted by a series of posts detailing an ancient legend that claimed the moon held a gateway to another realm, a place where one could commune directly with its sentient spirit. The legend spoke of a specific location where this portal was said to be strongest, an abandoned observatory on the outskirts of town. The observatory had been closed for decades after a mysterious incident involving its last caretaker. According to local lore, he had become obsessed with his research on lunar phenomena and vanished one night during a full moon. Some whispered that he had crossed over into the realm of the moon itself and was never seen again. As I read through these posts, a sense of dread washed over me. The observatory was only 15 miles away from my home, a short drive, but it felt like stepping into a different world entirely. Night Watcher and others encouraged me to join them for a gathering at the site during the supermoon. "It's where we'll make contact," they insisted. "You'll see things you've never imagined." Despite my apprehension, curiosity gnawed at me like a relentless hunger. What if there was truth to their claims? What if the moon really was sentient? The thought was intoxicating, and before I knew it, I found myself typing out a response. "I'm in." The night of the supermoon arrived with an eerie stillness that blanketed everything around me. As darkness fell, I drove to the observatory, my heart pounding with anticipation and fear. The road wound through dense woods that seemed to whisper secrets as I passed by. Shadows danced in my peripheral vision, but I dismissed them as figments of my imagination. When I arrived at the observatory, I was struck by its haunting beauty, a crumbling structure overtaken by nature, vines creeping up its walls like fingers reaching for something lost. The dome that once housed powerful telescopes now lay open to the sky, revealing the luminous orb that hung above us like an otherworldly eye. A small group had gathered outside, illuminated by flickering candles they had placed in a circle on the ground. Night Watcher stood among them, their face obscured by shadows but their presence commanding. As I approached, they turned to me with an intensity that made my skin crawl. "Welcome," they said softly. "Tonight is special. Tonight we will awaken her." I joined the circle as they began chanting in unison, a low hum that resonated deep within me. The air grew thick with anticipation as we raised our arms toward the moon, feeling its pull as if it were alive and breathing. My heart raced as I closed my eyes and surrendered to the moment. Suddenly, a chill swept through the air, causing goosebumps to erupt on my skin. The chanting grew louder, more urgent, echoing off the walls of the observatory like an ancient incantation calling forth something long forgotten. It felt as though time itself had stopped. All that existed was us and the moon above. Then came a sound, a low rumble that vibrated through my bones. It was unlike anything I had ever heard. It resonated with an otherworldly quality that sent waves of fear coursing through me. My eyes snapped open just in time to see shadows moving around us, figures emerging from the darkness beyond our candlelight. They were indistinct at first, mere shapes shifting in and out of focus, but as they drew closer, clarity emerged from obscurity. They looked human, yet somehow wrong. Their features were distorted as if they were reflections caught in rippling water under moonlight. Panic surged within me as I realized these figures were not part of our group. They were something else entirely, specters, summoned by our ritual, or perhaps manifestations of our own fears brought forth by the moon's influence. "Stay calm, Night Watcher," shouted above the growing chaos. "They are here for us." I felt paralyzed by fear as more figures emerged from the shadows, some reaching out toward us with elongated fingers, while others writhed as if caught in an unseen current. A sense of dread enveloped me. It felt like we had crossed an invisible threshold into something far beyond our understanding. The chanting faltered as confusion spread through our circle. Some members began to back away while others stood frozen in terror. Just then, one figure stepped forward, its face illuminated by candlelight, and what I saw made my blood run cold. It wore a mask resembling a lunar surface crater's, and all its eyes glowing with an unnatural light that seemed to pierce through my very soul. In that moment, all thoughts of curiosity vanished. All that remained was primal fear as it raised its hand toward me. "Awaken," it whispered in a voice that echoed like thunder rolling across an empty sky. This segment deepens both character involvement and tension while introducing supernatural elements related to their beliefs about the moon's sentience. Let me know if you'd like any changes, or if you're ready for the next segment. The figure with the lunar mask stepped closer, its glowing eyes locking onto mine. I felt an icy grip around my heart, paralyzing me with fear. The others in the circle were frozen, caught between terror and fascination. Night Watcher shouted something, but their words were drowned out by the pounding of my heart and the low hum that still resonated in the air. "Awaken," the figure repeated, its voice a haunting melody that seemed to resonate with the very fabric of reality. I could feel its words vibrating in my bones, pulling me closer to an abyss I had never wanted to approach. In that moment, something shifted within me. The fear that had gripped me began to morph into a strange sense of understanding. I felt as if I was being drawn into a cosmic dance, one that transcended my earthly existence. My mind raced with thoughts of what lay beyond our world, what secrets the moon held, and what it meant for us as mere mortals. Suddenly the figure reached out, its elongated fingers brushing against my arm. A jolt of energy surged through me, igniting every nerve ending. Images flooded my mind, visions of ancient civilizations gazing up at the moon in worship, rituals performed under its glow, and whispers of forgotten knowledge passed down through generations. I gasped as I was overwhelmed by sensations that were not my own. "Join us," it urged softly, pulling me deeper into its gaze. "Become one with her." I felt a strange compulsion to obey. The fear that had once paralyzed me began to dissipate, replaced by an intoxicating sense of belonging. I could hear the chanting rhythm around me, growing louder and more fervent, as if calling forth something from the depths of the night sky. Then, just as quickly as it had begun, everything changed. A loud crack echoed through the observatory as one of the candles flickered violently before extinguishing itself. The shadows seemed to deepen, swallowing our circle whole. Panic erupted among my companions. Some screamed while others scrambled to escape. "Stay together," Night Watcher shouted, trying to maintain control amidst the chaos. But it was too late. Fear had taken hold like a wild beast unleashed. I stumbled backward, trying to break free from the figure's grip, but found myself surrounded by darkness. The air grew thick with an oppressive energy that made it hard to breathe. My vision blurred as I turned to flee, but before I could escape, another shadow lunged at me from behind. It was another masked figure, this one adorned with symbols that glowed eerily in the dim light. It grabbed my shoulder with a grip like iron and pulled me back into the fray. "Do not resist," it hissed through clenched teeth. "You must embrace her." In that moment of desperation, I felt an instinctual urge to fight back. With all my strength, I broke free from its grasp and dashed toward the entrance of the observatory. The chaos behind me was deafening. Screams echoed off the walls as shadows danced menacingly in pursuit. Just as I reached the door, a powerful force slammed into me from behind, sending me sprawling onto the cold ground outside. Gasping for breath, I looked up at the sky. The supermoon loomed above us like a watchful guardian, or perhaps a malevolent overseer. As I scrambled to my feet, I could see others fleeing into the woods surrounding the observatory. Night Watcher was nowhere in sight. Panic surged through me as I realized how easily we had been led into this trap. Desperate to escape whatever dark force had been unleashed upon us, I sprinted into the trees, branches clawing at my skin as I pushed deeper into the forest. Behind me I could hear shouts and cries mingling with laughter, a cacophony that sent chills racing down my spine. The moon hung high above me, illuminating my path with an eerie glow that felt both comforting and sinister. As I ran deeper into the woods, memories of everything I had read about lunar rituals flooded back, stories of those who had vanished during ceremonies like ours and whispers of sacrifices made under its light. What had we awakened? What ancient power had we disturbed? I stumbled through the underbrush until I reached a small clearing where moonlight poured down like liquid silver. In its glow stood a massive stone altar covered in strange symbols that matched those on the masks worn by those who had chased me. My breath caught in my throat as realization dawned on me. This was where they conducted their rituals, the heart of their dark beliefs about lunar sentience. As if summoned by my thoughts, Shadows began to emerge from the trees, once more figures clad in dark robes adorned with lunar motifs encircled me slowly. Their faces remained hidden beneath hoods, only their glowing eyes shone through like distant stars. "Welcome," one voice echoed from within their ranks, a voice eerily familiar yet distorted by time and space. "You have come seeking truth." I felt paralyzed again, but this time not by fear, rather by an overwhelming sense of inevitability. The moon above pulsed with energy, as if responding to their presence, its light intensifying until it felt like a spotlight focused solely on me. "What do you want?" I managed to stammer, my voice barely above a whisper. "To show you," another figure replied softly yet assertively. "To reveal what lies beyond your understanding." Before I could protest or flee again, they stepped forward in unison, each raising an arm toward me, as if channeling energy from above. The air crackled with electricity, reality warped around us like ripples on water. Visions flooded my mind, once more images of celestial beings dancing among stars and whispers echoing through time itself. The moon transformed before my eyes into something magnificent yet terrifying, a vast consciousness stretching across dimensions beyond human comprehension. "You are chosen," they intoned together, a chorus echoing through my very core. "Embrace her wisdom." As their words resonated within me, something deep inside stirred a longing for connection that transcended fear and doubt. Maybe this was what I had sought all along, not just knowledge but unity with something greater than myself. But just as quickly as that thought emerged, doubt crept back in. Was this truly enlightenment, or merely another form of control? Had we awakened something benevolent or malevolent? The shadows closed in tighter around me, their glowing eyes burned brighter than ever before, as they awaited my response, their intentions shrouded in mystery yet palpable in their intensity. In that moment, suspended between fear and revelation, all I could do was gaze up at the supermoon above, the silent witness to our fate, and wonder what choices lay ahead. This segment deepens both character involvement and tension while exploring themes of control and enlightenment within the conspiracy surrounding lunar sentience. Let me know if you'd like any changes, or if you're ready for the next segment. The shadows loomed closer, their eyes burning with an intensity that sent waves of trepidation through me. I felt trapped in a surreal nightmare, caught between the pull of the moon's influence and the chilling reality of the figures surrounding me. They waited, their presence both alluring and terrifying, as if they were embodiments of the very darkness I had sought to escape. "Embrace her wisdom," they repeated, their voices weaving together in a haunting melody that echoed through the clearing. The air crackled with energy, and I could feel the moon's light pulsating above us, as if it were alive and aware of our gathering. I took a step back, my instincts screaming for me to run. "What do you want from me?" I demanded, my voice trembling despite my resolve. "What is this place?" One of the figures stepped forward, lowering their hood to reveal a face marked by age and wisdom, yet twisted by something darker. "You seek answers," they said, their voice smooth like silk but laced with an undercurrent of something sinister. "You wish to know if the moon is truly sentient?" The others nodded in agreement, their eyes gleaming with anticipation. "We have seen its power," another figure added, stepping into the light. "It speaks to us in dreams and visions. It guides us toward enlightenment or destruction." "Enlightenment," I echoed incredulously. "Or destruction? How can you be sure?" The elder figure smiled, a chilling smile that sent shivers down my spine. "The moon is both creator and destroyer. It reflects our deepest desires and fears, shaping our reality based on what we choose to believe. Those who embrace its wisdom find clarity, those who resist are consumed by darkness." I felt a surge of anger rise within me. "You're playing with forces you don't understand. You think you can control it? You're just pawns in its game." At my words, a murmur rippled through the group, a mix of admiration and indignation. The elders' expression hardened as they stepped closer, their gaze piercing through me like a blade. "And what makes you so certain you understand? You came here seeking truth, yet you fear what you do not comprehend." In that moment, doubt crept back into my mind. Had I truly come here seeking truth, or had I been lured by curiosity into a web of madness? The moon hung above us like an omnipotent deity, watching as I wrestled with my own thoughts. "Join us," the elder urged again, extending a hand toward me. "Become one with her. Let go of your fears and embrace your destiny." I hesitated, torn between the allure of belonging and the instinct to flee from this madness. The shadows around me shifted restlessly, their anticipation was palpable as they awaited my decision. "Why should I trust you?" I asked, my voice steadier than before. "What proof do you have that this is real?" The elder's eyes narrowed slightly as they considered my question. Then they gestured toward the altar behind them, a massive stone structure covered in intricate carvings that glowed faintly in the moonlight. "Witness," they commanded. As if on cue, the figures began to chant once more, a low hum that resonated through the ground beneath me. The air thickened with energy as I felt an invisible force pulling me toward the altar against my will. "Look," one figure cried out excitedly. I turned my gaze to the altar just as it began to shimmer with light, revealing symbols that danced across its surface like living entities. The carvings twisted and turned until they formed images, visions of ancient rituals performed under the moonlight, sacrifices made in its name, and people lost to madness in pursuit of its secrets. My breath caught in my throat as I watched scenes unfold before me, people standing in circles similar to ours, their faces twisted in ecstasy or horror as they surrendered themselves to lunar influence. Some appeared enlightened, others were consumed by shadows that writhed around them like serpents. "Do you see?" the elder's voice cut through my shock. "This is what awaits those who seek her truth." Suddenly, one vision shifted dramatically. A figure resembling me stood at the center of a circle much like ours, but this time surrounded by darkness so thick it swallowed everything whole. My heart raced as I realized it was a warning, a glimpse into what could happen if I chose wrong. "No," I shouted, stepping back from the altar as panic surged within me. "I won't become one of them." But before I could turn to flee again, an unseen force gripped my shoulders, firm yet gentle, holding me in place before the altar's mesmerizing glow. "Choose," the elder commanded once more. "Embrace her or be cast into darkness." With every ounce of strength left within me, I fought against their hold, against the pull of the moon's influence that sought to envelop me in its embrace. My mind raced with thoughts of everything I had experienced, the laughter echoing in chaos at the observatory, the masked figures chasing me through the woods, and suddenly clarity struck like lightning. "No," I cried out defiantly. "I refuse to be part of this madness." With that declaration came an unexpected surge of energy. It coursed through me like fire igniting dry grass. In an instant, I broke free from their grip and stumbled backward away from the altar. The chanting faltered, confusion spread among those gathered as they watched me retreat into darkness once more. "Stop her," the elder shouted angrily. But I was already sprinting into the woods again, my heart pounding wildly as adrenaline surged through my veins. The shadows behind me began to shift once more. Whispers filled the air like a sinister chorus, urging me back into their fold. I ran blindly through branches that clawed at my skin until finally bursting into another clearing bathed in moonlight, the same clearing where our gathering had begun. But now it felt different, charged with an energy that pulsed beneath my feet like a heartbeat echoing through time itself. As I stood there panting heavily beneath that watchful eye above me, the supermoon glowing brighter than ever, I realized something fundamental. The choice was mine. In that moment of clarity amidst chaos, I lifted my head toward the moon and shouted defiantly, "I reject your power. You do not control me." A deafening silence fell over everything. The shadows receded momentarily, as if taken aback by my declaration, but then came an overwhelming rush. A wave of energy surged forth, crashing against me like an ocean tide threatening to pull me under. But instead of succumbing to fear or despair, I stood firm against it all, rooted deep within myself, determined not only to survive but also reclaim what belonged solely to me, my will. This segment builds up to a climactic confrontation between your protagonist and the conspiracy surrounding lunar sentience, while exploring themes of empowerment and self-determination amidst chaos. Let me know if you'd like any changes or if you're ready for the final segment. As I stood beneath the supermoon, my heart racing and my breath coming in ragged gasps, I felt the energy swirling around me like a tempest. Shadows flickered at the edges of my vision, whispering promises of power and knowledge, but I remained resolute. "I reject you," I shouted again, my voice echoing through the clearing. "You have no hold over me." With each declaration, I felt a surge of strength flowing through me, a warmth that pushed back against the cold darkness surrounding me. The moon above pulsed with light, as if responding to my defiance. It was as if I had tapped into something ancient and primal, a force that was both terrifying and exhilarating. The shadows hesitated, their whispers growing quieter. I could see them shifting uneasily, their glowing eyes dimming as they recoiled from my fierce resolve. The elder figure stepped forward again, their face twisted in anger and disbelief. "You cannot escape her. You are bound to her will." "No," I shouted back, feeling the power of my conviction swell within me. "I am not bound to anything but my own choices." In that moment of clarity, I reached deep within myself, drawing upon every ounce of strength and determination I possessed. I raised my arms toward the moon, feeling its light wash over me like a protective shield. I call upon the truth. I call upon my own will. The air crackled with energy as a blinding light erupted from my outstretched hands, illuminating the clearing with an intensity that rivaled the moon itself. The shadows writhed in agony as they were engulfed by the light, their forms dissipating like mist in the morning sun. No, the elders screamed as they were swallowed by the radiance. You cannot do this. But it was too late. As the light surged forth, it swept away the darkness that had threatened to consume me. The whispers faded into silence, replaced by a profound sense of peace that settled over me like a warm blanket. When the brilliance finally subsided, I found myself standing alone in the clearing, bathed in moonlight yet untouched by its malevolence. The oppressive weight of fear had lifted for the first time since this journey began. I felt free. I looked around at the remnants of what had been a circle of candles extinguished and scattered on the ground like fallen stars. The altar stood silent now, its symbols still glowing faintly but devoid of any sinister energy. It was just stone, an artifact of a belief system that had once threatened to ensnare me. Taking a deep breath, I turned away from the altar and began to walk back through the woods toward my car. The path felt different, now less ominous and more familiar, as if I were reclaiming territory that had once belonged to me. As I emerged from the trees into the parking area where I had left my vehicle, a sense of relief washed over me. The night was still alive with sounds, the rustle of leaves and the gentle breeze and distant calls of nocturnal creatures, but there was no longer any sense of impending doom. I climbed into my car and sat for a moment, staring up at the supermoon hanging majestically in the sky. It was beautiful, an ethereal orb casting silver light across everything it touched. But now I understood its true nature. It was neither benevolent nor malevolent. It simply existed, a reflection of our own desires and fears. With newfound clarity, I started my engine and drove away from that place, the observatory fading into darkness behind me. As I navigated through winding roads back toward civilization, thoughts raced through my mind about everything that had transpired. I realized how easily one could be lured into believing in something greater than oneself, how fear could manipulate even those with good intentions into dangerous territories. The dark web had opened doors to knowledge, but also to madness, a reminder that curiosity must be tempered with caution. In the days that followed, I distanced myself from online conspiracies and dark corners of the internet. Instead, I focused on grounding myself in reality, finding solace in simple pleasures, long walks under clear skies, conversations with friends who didn't dwell on shadows but celebrated light. Yet even as life returned to normalcy, fragments of that night lingered in my mind, the faces hidden behind masks, whispers carried away by shadows. Occasionally, when gazing up at the moon during quiet nights, a shiver would run down my spine, a reminder of what lay beyond our understanding. But instead of fear now, there was gratitude for having faced darkness and emerged stronger on the other side. One evening, while sitting outside beneath a starry sky illuminated by a full moon's glow, I reflected on everything that had happened, the choices made and paths taken, and felt an overwhelming sense of peace settle within me. The moon remained above, silent yet watchful, but this time it felt different. It was no longer an object of fear or worship, but rather a symbol of resilience, a reminder that we are all capable of choosing our own destinies amidst chaos. And so I vowed never to forget what lay beyond our world, the mysteries waiting just out of reach, but also to honor my own will above all else. For in embracing our truths lies true power, the ability not only to confront darkness, but also to illuminate our own paths forward under even the most daunting skies. This final segment concludes your story by emphasizing themes of empowerment and self-discovery, while reflecting on what it means to confront one's fears and reclaim personal agency. If you have any further requests or need adjustments, feel free to let me know. Months passed since that fateful night at the observatory. The world around me continued to spin in its usual rhythm, but I felt different, changed in ways I couldn't fully articulate. The moon still hung in the sky, a constant companion, but now it felt more like an old friend than a looming threat. I often found myself staring up at it, contemplating the mysteries it held and the darkness I had narrowly escaped. I had returned to my routine, but I was no longer the same person who had been drawn into the dark web's conspiracies. I spent my days working at a local bookstore, surrounded by stories that grounded me in reality rather than the surreal narratives of shadowy forums. The smell of old pages and the soft rustle of readers flipping through books provided a comforting backdrop to my life, a stark contrast to the chaos I had once embraced. Yet, despite this newfound normalcy, remnants of that night lingered in my mind like echoes of a distant storm. I often replayed the events over and over, trying to make sense of what had happened, the figures and masks, the chanting, and that overwhelming moment when I had stood against them. It was both a source of pride and a haunting memory. One evening, while closing up the bookstore, I noticed a familiar face among the customers, a woman who had been part of our gathering at the observatory. Her name was Clara, and she had been one of those who fled into the woods alongside me. I hadn't seen her since that night, and a wave of recognition washed over me. "Hey," I called out as she approached the counter. "It's been a while." Clara looked up, her expression a mix of relief and apprehension. "I didn't know if I'd ever see you again," she admitted softly. "After everything, I've been trying to forget." I nodded, understanding all too well what she meant. The memories were like shadows that refused to fade completely. "Me too," I replied. "But it's hard to shake off what happened." We exchanged stories about our experiences since that night, how each of us had struggled to return to normal life while grappling with lingering fears and doubts. Clara spoke about her attempts to reconnect with friends who didn't understand what we had gone through, how they dismissed her concerns as mere paranoia. "I think they just don't get it," she said with a sigh. "They don't know what it's like to feel that kind of power, how intoxicating it can be." Her words resonated deeply with me. The allure of that power still tugged at my thoughts from time to time, a seductive whisper reminding me of what lay beyond our mundane existence. But I also understood now that with great power came great danger. It was a lesson learned through experience rather than theory. "I've been trying to focus on grounding myself," I shared, "finding joy in simple things like reading or spending time with people who care about me." Clara smiled faintly, her eyes glimmering with understanding. "That sounds nice," she said softly. "Maybe we could help each other find our way back." From that day forward, Clara and I formed an unlikely friendship, two survivors navigating the aftermath of an experience that had forever changed us. We met regularly for coffee or walks under the moonlight, sharing our thoughts on everything from mundane life to existential musings about what lay beyond our world. One night, as we strolled through a quiet park illuminated by soft lamplight and moonbeams filtering through trees overhead, Clara turned to me with a serious expression. "Do you ever wonder if they're still out there?" she asked quietly. I paused, considering her question carefully. "You mean the group? The ones who believed in the moon's power?" She nodded slowly. "Yeah, what if they're still practicing their rituals? What if they're trying to awaken something again?" A chill ran down my spine at her words. Memories flooded back the masked figures, their chants echoing in my mind like distant thunder. "I hope not," I replied honestly. "But part of me knows there are always those drawn to power, those willing to risk everything for knowledge." Clara shivered slightly at my response, and we continued walking in silence for a moment before she spoke again. "What do you think would happen if they succeeded? If they truly awakened whatever lies within the moon?" The question hung heavy in the air between us, a dark cloud overshadowing our otherwise peaceful evening. I glanced up at the moon above us. Its light was serene yet powerful, a reminder of both beauty and danger. "I don't know," I admitted finally, "but I think it would change everything." As we reached the edge of the park, we stopped beneath an ancient oak tree whose branches stretched toward the sky like skeletal fingers reaching for something just out of reach. The moon illuminated its gnarled bark, casting intricate shadows on the ground below. "Promise me something," Clara said suddenly, her voice serious yet tinged with vulnerability. "What is it?" I asked. "Promise me that if you ever feel drawn back into that darkness, if you ever feel tempted by what lies beyond, you'll reach out for help." I met her gaze, seeing both fear and determination reflected in her eyes. "I promise," I replied sincerely, "and you do the same." We stood there for a moment longer beneath that ancient tree, two friends bound by shared experiences and mutual understanding before finally parting ways for the night. As I walked home under the watchful gaze of the supermoon once more, thoughts swirled through my mind like leaves caught in an autumn breeze. What lay beyond our understanding? What truths were hidden within shadows? But instead of fear gripping my heart this time, there was acceptance, a recognition that some mysteries were best left unexplored while others could be embraced with caution. The moon continued its silent vigil above us as I settled into bed later that night, its light spilling through my window like liquid silver, illuminating my dreams with whispers of possibility. And though shadows lingered at the edges of my consciousness, reminders of what could have been, I knew now that true power lay not in surrendering oneself to darkness, but rather in embracing one's own light amidst uncertainty. For every choice made shapes our reality, every step taken leads us closer toward understanding, not just about ourselves, but also about those forces beyond our control. With this newfound wisdom guiding me forward into whatever awaited on tomorrow's horizon, I closed my eyes beneath that watchful moon, ready to embrace whatever truths lay ahead while remaining steadfastly anchored within myself. This final segment serves as an epilogue that reflects on growth and resilience while acknowledging lingering fears and uncertainties after such a transformative experience. If you have any further requests or need adjustments, feel free to let me know. The months that followed my encounter at the observatory were a blend of normalcy and reflection. I had settled into a routine, but the shadows of that night lingered just beneath the surface. The moon continued to rise and fall in its celestial dance, a constant reminder of the power I had confronted and the darkness I had narrowly escaped. Clara and I maintained our friendship, often meeting for coffee or late-night walks under the moonlight. We shared stories and laughter, but there was always an unspoken understanding between us, a recognition that we had both been touched by something beyond our comprehension. We were survivors, bonded by our shared experience. One evening, as we walked through a quiet park, Clara turned to me with a serious expression. "Do you think we'll ever truly escape what happened?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I looked up at the moon, its light casting silvery shadows on the ground. "I don't know," I admitted, "but I think we can learn to live with it." That night, as I lay in bed, sleep eluded me. My mind raced with thoughts of the conspiracy and the figures in masks. What if they were still out there? What if they had found others to join their ranks? The idea sent chills down my spine. In an attempt to regain control over my thoughts, I turned to writing. I began documenting my experiences, everything from my initial curiosity about the dark web to my encounters with the shadowy figures at the observatory. Writing became a form of catharsis, allowing me to process my fears and uncertainties. One night, while typing away in my dimly lit room, I received an unexpected message from an unknown user on a social media platform. The message read, "I know what you saw. The moon is awakening." My heart raced as I stared at the screen, fear gripping me once more. Who was this person? How did they know about my experience? I hesitated before responding, but curiosity got the better of me. "What do you mean?" I typed back. The response came quickly. "They're gathering again. You must prepare." Panic surged through me as I read those words. Had my past come back to haunt me? Were they trying to draw me back into their web? I thought about Clara and how we had vowed to stay away from that darkness, but now it felt like it was closing in on me again. I decided to confide in Clara about the message. We met at our usual cafe, and as I recounted my encounter with the mysterious user, her expression shifted from concern to determination. "We can't ignore this," she said firmly. "If they're gathering again, we need to find out what's happening." Reluctantly, I agreed. We spent hours researching online, diving back into forums and threads that discussed lunar conspiracies and occult practices. It felt dangerous yet exhilarating, like stepping back into a world we had tried so hard to leave behind. As we dug deeper, we discovered whispers of a new gathering scheduled for the next full moon, a ritual believed to awaken an ancient power hidden within the moon itself. The more we read, the more it became clear that this wasn't just about belief, it was about control and manipulation. "We have to go," Clara insisted as we pieced together information from various sources. "We need to see for ourselves what they're planning." My heart raced at the thought of returning to that world, the world of masked figures and shadowy rituals, but there was also a sense of responsibility growing within me. If we could gather information or even disrupt their plans, perhaps we could prevent another tragedy like what had happened at the observatory. As the date approached, anxiety gnawed at me. The night before the gathering, Clara and I met one last time for coffee under a clear sky filled with stars. "Whatever happens tomorrow," she said softly, "we stick together." I nodded in agreement, feeling a mix of fear and determination swirling within me. We were no longer just curious outsiders, we were warriors standing against an unseen enemy. When the night of the gathering arrived, we drove to a secluded location deep in the woods, where whispers hinted that rituals would take place under the light of the full moon. As we parked our car and stepped into the darkness, adrenaline coursed through my veins. The air was thick with anticipation as we made our way toward a clearing illuminated by flickering candles, just like before. My heart pounded in my chest as memories flooded back the chanting, the shadows closing in. But this time would be different. This time we were prepared. This 7th segment delves into how your protagonist continues to grapple with their past while preparing for a new confrontation with their fears and challenges ahead. If you have any further requests or need adjustments or additional segments, feel free to let me know.